Good morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right up here.
Where are we? Okay.
Welcome to Hampton Bays Elementary School. Please stand at this time. Sergeant Arms, please present the colors at this time.
The color guard, stand hook. Rifleman, right shoulder, arm. Forward, march. Detail, halt. Left or right face.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Arm.
I pledge allegiance to the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Flagman, post, color. Color guard, left or right face. Rifleman, right shoulder, arm. Forward, march. Please be seated. Welcome to Hampton Bays Elementary School. In addition to our incredible fourth graders, I would like to thank our fourth grade team, our musical director, Mr. Calero, and our fabulous PTA, as always, for putting this assembly together today. Thank you all. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Lars Weinson.
Good morning, echo Mr. Myers' welcome and welcome you to Hampton Bays Elementary School and the Hampton Bays Public Schools. This is our annual Patriots Day Ceremony, and I'm thrilled to have our third graders here with us. It's a good model for what our kids can look forward to when they're in fourth grade. Today is the 23rd time, the 23rd anniversary that we have, or this is the 22nd time because this morning marks the 23rd anniversary when the United States had one of its darkest days at the World Trade Center in New York City, at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So for 22 times since 2002, we've come together as a Hampton Bays community to remember September 11th and pay tribute to those first responders, those who died, and those who were injured in the attacks of September 11th, 2001. At this time, as we begin the ceremony, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. We call this the living classroom in Hampton Bays. We gather for moments like this. Today's only our fourth day of school in Hampton Bays. We start school in the heat of last week, and we get right down to business in fourth grade, making sure that we honor and remember. We begin writing poetry and we begin writing essays, and the fourth grade team wastes not a minute when those kids come up the stairs in the fourth grade wing. And you're going to hear from some of our best readers and writers today, and they're a representative of the entire fourth grade class. Today with us, we have our elected officials and community leaders who champion Hampton Bays every day, and this place wouldn't be a great place without their leadership. So in addition to our fourth grade team and the PTA and all of the staff and leaders here at the elementary school, I'd like to welcome State Assemblyman Fred Field. Good morning. Suffolk County Legislator Bridget Fleming. Good morning. From Southampton Town Hall, Council Members Cindy McNamara and Rick Martell. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Representing our Congressman Nick Lalata, we have with us Peter Ganlin from his office. Good morning. We have members of our local heroes here from the Police Department, the United States Coast Guard, the Hampton Bays Fire Department, the Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And I'd like to welcome, in addition to their team, Southampton Town Police Chief James Kiernan. Good morning, Chief. And Hampton Bays Fire Department Chief and his team, James Cowers. Good morning, Chief. And certainly, last but not least, our partners who work with us every day to recognize and honor and support veterans who live among us and have given so much to our country. The living classroom, in addition to the Patriots Day, also includes honoring veterans throughout the year. And so I'd like to recognize and welcome members of the American Legion Hand Aldrich Post 924. Good morning. The American Legion Auxiliary from Post 924, good morning, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 5350. After September 11th, it was said that the attacks of that day were intended to break our spirit, and instead we've emerged stronger and more unified. So we feel that renewed sense of devotion in the living classroom for the principles of freedom and democracy and service to our neighbors. And we are determined in Hampton Bays to make sure that that doesn't ever wane, that we never forget and we always remember and honor. It's super important today. It's important today because there's not one student in the Hampton Bays School District, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, who was alive on September 11th, 2011. It is a textbook moment for our kids. It's almost a textbook moment for our news teachers, if you can imagine that. So it becomes important to tell the stories, to tell the sacrifice, to share how important that day was to us in the United States. And at the National 9/11 Memorial in New York City, where our high school students typically visit, there's a quote that reads, "No day shall erase you from the memory of God." We live that in Hampton Bays. That's why it's important to us that we never forget and always honor. We also remember our first responders, specifically the 343 members of the fire department who rushed in when others had to rush out. And as you're going to hear from these children in 4th grade, these heroes are life lessons that we continue to learn from. Here in our own community, members of the Hampton Bays Fire Department loaded up and headed to the city in the days, weeks, and months that followed. Members of the New York State Police and the Port Authority and so many others were impacted as well. We remember their sacrifice. In so many ways, we're lucky to live in the shadow of New York City, and September 11th showed us how close we are as people to one another, and how important it is that we take care of one another. So we remember and recognize fire department members and all first responders whose time at Ground Zero had a cost on that day and days today, where many battle medical illness and effects 22 years later. We remember them and we thank them. Today, the Hampton Bays Fire Department will present a beautiful memorial wreath that we'll see in just a few moments. And then tonight, that wreath will be presented to the 9/11 Memorial Garden right here at Hampton Bays Elementary School on Hong Kong Avenue. The American Legion will begin a march from the post about 6 o'clock, I believe, and down to the garden, and then onward to the substation down further on Hong Kong Avenue. And our entire community is invited to that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for believing, as important as we do, that the living classroom is something our kids should experience every day in Hampton Bays. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. McNamara and introduce you to some of our readers and the thoughts that they have to share. Ms. McNamara.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming today. As Mr. Clemenson said, we have been very busy since the first day of school. They've been learning about Patriots Day and honoring our heroes and those that lost their lives. They are very excited to share with you the poems and short essays that they wrote to you. On a more personal note, as Mr. Clemenson was saying, as I was talking about this with my class, and the students in grades K through 12 were not alive. So we were talking about it, and it's a day that you always remember where you were on that day. And my lovely co-teacher, Ms. Tuska, mentioned that she was only in kindergarten. So that made me feel a little old, but it was in hindsight to our discussion with our kids. I'd like to share with you, we're going to start with Pearl Bergenti from Mrs. DiMaggio's class, her essay for you.
Today we honor the people who passed away and those who saved many lives on September 11, 2001. To the heroes of 9/11, if you weren't there, so many people wouldn't be here. A lot of my family lived in New York at that time. You saved so many lives. One thing I learned about is the reflecting pools. They are all the names of the people who passed to honor them. I also learned that a lot of dogs help to rescue people too, not only humans. So just remember, not all heroes wear capes. Thank you very much for everything, 9/11 heroes.
From Mrs. Ferguson's class, we have Morgan Tuthill.
Policemen and women showed their bravery by helping people escape the Twin Towers. Ambulance and first responders were 9/11, ordinary people could be heroes too. Today we hold memorials and a moment of silence to honor these people. Dogs were heroes by searching for people in the rubble. Anyone can be a hero. You can too. Thank you.
From Mr. Fritz's class, Luciano Soledad.
Thank you to the firefighters for helping us on the days we need it. The help of things firefighters do helps everyone in the community because there are people who do bad things to scare us like what happened on September 11th. It's good that we have firefighters in our community who look out for us. Thank you firefighters for helping us.
From my class, we have Vivian Razi.
Acrostic poem. A. Amazing heroes live here. M. Many people risk their lives. E. Everyone should be treated equally. R. Remember the people who died. I. Individual people in our memories. C. Courageous people fought for our country. A. Americans fought for freedom.
From Miss Payton's class, Emma Kirst.
What is a hero? A supernatural being fighting the odds and overcoming evil. Someone who would risk life and limb for someone they don't know. Someone tirelessly looking for a cure for a disease. A person who would help someone in need. What is a hero to me? A person who would help out no matter what the cost. Someone with open arms willing to comfort others. Someone willing to work hard without recognition or compensation. Who can be a hero? A person born with a pure heart. And maybe that hero can be you or me, helping people in the small ways we can.
From Miss Renna's class, we have Tiago Ochoa, and he's going to read his in English and in Spanish.
Police, policías ayudaron. Police observed. A. America es nuestro país. America is your country. T. Tiempo insuficiente. Time was insufficient. R. Rescatar a las personas. Rescue people. Importante en nuestra historia. Importante in history. O. Observamos momentos de silencio. Observe moments on silence. T. Trato de apagar el fuego. They tried to put out the fire.
And Luke Mackey from Miss Tamaglia's class.
Acrostic poem Heroes. H. Heroes are found everywhere. They are helpful, caring, confident, brave, and fearless people. E. Everyone can be a hero by helping others. R. Risk their own lives to keep people safe. O. Outstanding heroes are courageous. E. Even when it's hard, heroes are brave and helpful. S. Someday you could be a hero too.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Better than any of us could have said it, right? That's representative of the 145 fourth graders who are sitting proudly behind me. Let's have a round of applause for all of them. As I mentioned earlier, our elected officials tell the story of Hampton Bays from Southampton Town Hall to Hop Hog to Albany and then down to Washington, D.C. And we can't do this work without their advocacy and support, and I thank them for being here. I'd like to welcome State Assemblyman Field to offer his welcome and good morning.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Hampton Bays School District and Superintendent Clemenson and the administration, the school board, and everybody here at the Hampton Bays School District for inviting me to be here today to commemorate 9/11, one of the most tragic days in American history. And at the outset, first and foremost, I want to thank all of our first responders who are here today, our firefighters, our police officers, ambulance workers, all of those, and especially in this community, many of whom are volunteers who serve us every single day. But what we were reminded on 9/11, what heroes they were. They were rushing into the buildings when everybody else was trying to get out of the building. So we say thank you and a round of applause certainly for all of them. 22 years ago, for the students behind me, it's a page in the history book. No different than Gettysburg, or President Kennedy's assassination, or Pearl Harbor. And I'm mindful of the fact that this year I turned 70 years old. In 1963, when President Kennedy was killed, I was 10 years old. I was about the same age as these kids, and I remember everything about that day and everything about that weekend. But I also think 22 years ago, 22 years before that, 1941, Pearl Harbor. And I remember that for me, that was a page in the history book. I would listen to my parents who lived through it. I would hear their stories, what they had to say. My parents being in a movie theater at Sag Harbor at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when the word came that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. And that's the way I knew that. And that's how our students behind us know about 9/11. And it is imperative through the living classroom, through the work that we do here in the school, to make sure that our children, our students have the same understanding of why 9/11 was important that I learned about Pearl Harbor, even though I never lived through it. I heard it through my parents. So we need to remind them, educate them, tell the stories so that they know why 9/11 is so important and why our first responders, our patriots, were so important to all of us on that day. And I just want to conclude really by talking about one of those stories. I do this every year. Some of you have heard this story before, but we say never forget, and I don't want people to forget. And that is my friend from going back to grade school, Linda Grunlin, who was a hero that day. I met Linda Grunlin when I was the same age as these students. We got to know each other in grade school in Sag Harbor Elementary School, just down the road. We graduated from Pearson High School together. We both graduated from Southampton College, just down the road also. And this may not be the best of our, but we both became lawyers. Both worked for the environment, me in the public sector and her in the private sector. And she was a wonderful person. And on a day like today, just 22 years ago, her and her boyfriend, Joe DeLuca, who I also always mention, we remember, were off on a vacation. They were going to wine country in Napa, getting on a plane to go to Northern California. And that plane was United 93. And they are heroes. Every one of them on that plane. As bad as 9/11 was, and it was horrible, it was terrible. Because of their actions, a plane that was headed for Washington, headed for the Capitol, they stormed the cockpit and brought the plane down and saved who knows how many lives in Washington, D.C. that day. So there's so many stories. Over 3,000 people lost their lives that day, many more. Let us not forget the many more that lost their lives as responders from cancers and other health problems because they answered the call. Many other stories. Let us remember Linda Grunlin, and let's remember each and every one of those stories. God bless them. God bless America.
Thank you. Legislator Fleming.
Thank you, Superintendent Clemenson, and my heart goes out to all of Linda's friends and family who are obviously so moved by her sacrifice. I'm here with Michael Iacilli from my legislative team. I'm Bridget Fleming, and I represent the 2nd Legislative District, which includes this area in the Suffolk County Legislature. And I'm so glad to be here once again, Superintendent. I'm so grateful for the fact that the superintendent and all the members of this incredible school put together this commemorative gathering every year, just so critically important. And Mrs. McNamara, your readers never disappoint, so thank you, well done, children. I am just so honored to be here. It was a horrible day in our shared history. And now, as the Assemblyman so eloquently just described for us, what a terrible moment in our history. And we shared it, so many of us, and even those who weren't alive, and some of maybe the young teachers were not, still hold in their hearts the reality of what that meant for American history. And now that we've been through the pandemic together, we've seen weather crises, and we're sort of coming to realize that generation after generation is really facing crises that my generation really didn't have, to face as young people. And I saw, behind us, these children as they're saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and just getting their, learning those words that we all now almost take for granted. The word indivisible is something that they're still working on, right? We're one nation under God, indivisible, and what a terribly important word that is, because we recognize that we are so blessed to enjoy the safety and security and freedoms of our country, even through these crises. And why is it? I mean, it's very clear that we are a very special nation, and that we, do get through these tough times because we do it together. And I just want to re-emphasize, as we do every year when we're thinking about that horrible day, re-emphasize the idea that the reason why we got through it is because of community, is because, the churches and out in the stores, and I remember I was in New York City at the time, everyone cared for everyone who was there, and it's that sense of community that brought us through it, and it's what brought us through COVID. It's what's going to continue to bring us through any hurricane, or, we are best when we are together. Of course, we want to always honor our military. Gosh, where would we be without them? The veterans, our first responders, our police and public safety officers. Again, how blessed we are to live under the safety of those folks who give themselves every day to our cause. So I'd just like to ask that all of us, as I try to do, as we try to do on my legislative team, to continue to look for opportunities to unite behind common causes, to respect each other's differences, to never forget the sacrifices that have been made in order to ensure that we have, the great blessings that we have here in this country. I'm deeply grateful, and I'm certainly deeply grateful for the Hampton Bays community to welcome us every year at all of the veteran ceremonies, but certainly on a day like today, so we can kind of dig into our hearts and really recognize how very blessed we are and how grateful we should always be. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Clemenson.
Councilman McNamara and Councilman Martell, welcome.
So I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to especially thank our first responders for all that you do for our community. I know you have a day of thanks, and most of the time your job is thankless. But when, times count, you're there for us, and you're always there for us, and we know we can count on you day in and day out. And I want to thank you, but I also want to say thank you all for the time that you put in today. You did a wonderful job. I know only some of your things got read, and I know you all did them, and I'm sure they're amazing. So I just want to say thank you all for being here today and helping us recognize our first responders and whatever the charity is today. Thank you.
So I see that they're starting to fidget, so I'm going to make it really quick here. It's always a pleasure to be here as a graduate of Hampton Bays High School. I've been through this. I love that they sit here, and I love everything that Superintendent Clemenson and the staff here does. They do a wonderful job. History is not history with their living classroom. They live it, they speak about it, they write about it. It's wonderful that they do that. I'd actually ask that the essays that we take them back to Town Hall and try to read them at our town board meeting tomorrow if we could. So really quick, I'm just going to ask that we remember the over 3,000 who died that day on 9/11, but also remember those who died post 9/11. Through illness, through suicide, through war, we lost more than we lost that day. So please, as you go through the day, say a prayer for them. And also remember that, we honor our veterans every day, and I ask that we do that again today. We lost a very dear veteran in the past week, Mr. Lee Allen, and I'd ask that we say a prayer for the Allens and their family and for our American Legion, our VFW members, and all our first responders here today. Thank you. Our fourth graders have prepared a beautiful musical number for you. We're going to hear that in just a moment, but first I'd like to ask our friends from the Hampton Bays Fire Department for a special presentation, and our friend Joe to offer a benediction for our silent reflection. Thank you. This will be proudly displayed at our 9/11 garden right by the flagpole and the buoys out on Concord Avenue. Joe.
Let us pray. O God, our hope and refuge, in our distress, we come quickly to you. Shock and horror of that tragic day have subsided, replaced now with an emptiness, a longing for an innocence lost. We come remembering those who lost their lives in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. We are mindful of the sacrifice of public servants who demonstrated the greatest love of all by laying down their lives for friends. We commit their souls to your eternal care and celebrate their gifts to a fallen humanity. We come remembering and we come in hope, not in ourselves, but in you. As foundations we once thought secure have been shaken, we are reminded of the illusion of security. In commemorating this tragedy, we give you thanks for your presence in our time of need, and we seek to worship you in spirit and in truth, our guide and our guardian. Amen.
I'll introduce our musical director, Mr. Calera, and again, our fourth graders. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth graders will be singing a song called Grateful to Be American.
incredible group of students. How about one more round of applause? Thank you for attending today's Patriot Day at Hampton Bays Elementary School. At this time, we'd like to ask everybody to please stand. Sergeant Holmes, please retire the colors at this time.
Color guard attend hook. Rifleman, right shoulder, on. Forward, halt. Detail, halt. Left or right face. Flagman, retreat colors. Left or right face. Forward, halt. Detail, halt. Ball.
Thank you for coming. Have a great day.